Let's just very briefly review the alternatives and prototyping process. In this course, you're really repeating some of the things you've done before. In 375, for example, you created alternatives and prototypes. You're doing that again here, but just to make sure we're all on the same page and everyone remembers what alternatives and prototypes should look like, let's talk about them very quickly. So first, alternatives. Alternatives explore different experiences, so every time you draw a different alternative, you're trying to draw out a different user experience. So you're not just picking different colors or moving boxes into different orders on the page. This is not an exercise in layout, where do you want this piece to go in relationship to this piece. It's really about rethinking what the experience is like. You have a set of requirements, but you can achieve those requirements with different experiences. So let's take a look at an example. I'm going to look at teaching programming. Let's imagine that we have a full set of requirements, which include things like making the lessons self-paced, having some sort of course overview for learnability, having profiles for memorability, having lesson completion tracking for memorability and learnability as well, and of course utility. What could that look like? Well, there's lots of different experiences that could be built around this idea of creating a programming course online with these requirements. So let's look at Code Academy, which does exactly this. It's an online tool for learning programming. This is their main site. You can choose different projects or different languages and go through lessons for either of those, whether you're doing the project or you just want to look at the language. Code Academy has badges. Right now you're seeing badges based on lessons. There's also badges for completion, such as if you've done 20 lessons, if you've done 50 lessons, if you've done a certain number of lessons in a day. And the actual learning space, the learning modules for Code Academy look like this. So on the left, you have the section title, you have some text explaining what you're learning in this lesson and walking you through the concepts. And then under instructions, you have some sort of assignment that you're supposed to do that you complete over here in the black area. So you learn about, in this case, the loop, and then you have instructions that tell you you should make a loop. So you make one here, you press save and submit, it runs in this box here, and you see if what you did was correct. Let's look at Skillshare. Skillshare is a site for online learning. It's not specifically for programming, but they have a lot of programming specific courses. So let's look at one of their programming specific courses. And this is programming iPhone apps. And you'll see that there are certain sections here. We have info, lessons, community, and student projects. So a lot different from what you saw in Code Academy. On the left, we have a list of lessons, so you can go through the lessons out of order. And what you see right here is one of the lessons. So we're on Start Learning iPhone, we're on that lesson, and you'll see that the lesson consists of check boxes of things you need to do, and when you do them, they become crossed out. And then you have videos and text and chapters for reading stacked up underneath, very similar to Blackboard. No badges that I'm aware of. You don't choose based off of language or projects. You are told what language you're going to learn and you create a project based off of it, which is in its own little section right here, student projects. Not everyone makes the same project like Code Academy offers. Let's look at Coursera. Coursera is another online learning program, a MOOC, if you will, that offers a lot of computer science and programming courses. This is the Stanford Computer Science 101 course, and you'll see it's, again, still different from Code Academy and Skillshare. On the left, you have content areas. This is much more in line with a Blackboard type look and feel, where you have different content areas. You have exercises, lectures, discussion forums, a how-to, lecture documents you can download. Again, still different, no badges, doesn't have that interactive space that Code Academy has. In fact, if you look at the lessons, these are all videos that you click, the video pops up and you watch it. And then you go into exercises right here to do exercises. So still different from Skillshare, still different from Coursera. I'm sorry, Codecademy. And last but not least, let's look at Code School. Code School is very similar to Codecademy. You have the ability to choose languages that you want to learn. So still a little different from Codecademy because Codecademy offers projects you can learn from. You do have badges, but they're based on chapters, not necessarily achievements like Codecademy offers. This is a lesson for the programming language R. So you see a table of contents, and when you do the lesson, this is what you see. You see some instructions. You type into this area, and then you receive feedback, and another black coding area pops up, and you type into that, the next part, and so you just get a stack of these programming areas throughout the page. So all of these sites, all of these products accomplish the goal of teaching people programming. They have they have the same requirements. They're all self-paced. For the most part, the Skillshare one technically has due dates, but you're allowed to turn stuff in late. In fact, I took that class like, oh my gosh, maybe 2 years ago, and I still can get in there and work on projects. They all have course overviews, profiles of some kind, lesson completion tracking so you can see what you've completed and what you haven't completed. So they're meeting the same requirements. They're achieving the same objective of teaching programming, but in completely different ways in some instances. So that's what you want to do with your alternatives. You're not just looking at what colors you're using or what typefaces or where you're going to put stuff on the page. You're looking at reinventing the experience in a different way. If you want to teach programming, how will you do it? Will you do it mostly through videos? Will you do it mostly through an interactive coding area? Will you have projects that people complete in order to learn? Or will you have lessons just about languages that people will complete to learn? Completely different ways of teaching programming, but both valid and both used in a lot of different online teaching products online. I said online twice. So make sure your alternatives are representing different user experiences, and you're going to share your alternatives by creating prototypes. So just as a quick review, what is a prototype? Well, it's just one manifestation of a design. It enables interactions around a limited set of content. So you're not trying to create every little thing you want to have in your final version. You're trying to create types of things. So if you want to have profiles, you'll make a profile, not 100 profiles or 1,000 profiles. If you want to have a learning module like we saw in Codecademy, you'll make one of those and you'll show all the different things that it does rather than making one for every language. So you're making a sort of limited set of content, but you want to show every type of thing. And prototypes go from sketches, which are low fidelity, to functioning software, which are high fidelity. You are in the low fidelity sketching phase right now. Why are you making a prototype? Well, it can help you communicate between team members if you're on a team. It helps you communicate with your users so that you can test and get feedback. It helps you communicate with stakeholders so you can show your clients what you're working on and how it's going and what your vision is. Because it's very hard sometimes to explain the vision for a website or a digital product without having something to show. They allow you to explore alternative designs to determine which type of user experience is most appropriate, which is what you're using them for this week. And every prototype really should be put in front of users and experts. This week you're going to put your prototype in front of experts. Before prototyping, what you want to do is sort of start thinking about conceptual models based on your requirements. So based on what you have in your requirements list and the objectives of your project, what kind of tasks do people need to be able to do? If your objective is teaching programming and you have that list of requirements, tracking lessons, getting badges, what kind of tasks make that happen? So tasks can be either sketched in storyboard form, or a lot of times they're just written up. You can show them in user flows, which is the sort of conceptual map where you sketch out all the different pages and then you draw arrows from one to the other showing the order that all the tasks should be completed in. And you can create wire flows, which is a similar concept, sketches in order, and you create sort of arrows linking all the pages showing where a person would go. And then you can create wireframes from that. So I would suggest for you guys probably trying to write up some tasks. What are some things that have to get done? If your outcome is gaining followers for an organizational blog, what tasks have to be accomplished for that objective to be accomplished? So write out that task sequence. What does the person do? They get to the site. Then what? Then what? And then how does that result in them signing up to be followers? From there, you're going to make the prototype. So you are going to take that conceptual model and make it into a working model. So you're going to make it real. And you're going to create low fidelity prototypes. These are early stage prototypes. They explore the design and functionality and the alternatives, so different user experiences. And I really want to drill this in. You want to use content. Don't just draw squiggly lines for text. Don't just draw a box for a picture. Draw actual things. Write out what text is going to be on that page. Write out what or draw out what the picture is going to be of. It doesn't have to be the most amazing drawing ever, but if it's going to be a picture of a person, draw a little face. Use content. Don't just put squiggly marks and empty boxes, because there's really no way to test that. When you put that in front of a user, they're just going to be confused. They won't know what any of the stuff on there is. There's no way for them to give you any feedback or for you to observe what they do, because they'll just be scratching their heads looking at a bunch of squiggly lines and empty boxes. So use content, write it out on your paper prototype. Again, just as a refresher, I want to show you an excellent example of a paper prototype from some students at the University of Dundee. This is a GIF that's been floating around the internet, and I think it's amazing. It shows you a paper prototype of what's called the Personal Navigator, which is a concept of a sort of e-paper map. So the concept here is you would go to a museum and you would, instead of getting a little regular paper map, you would be handed this e-paper map, and it's interactive and you can click on it. And so you can see they've put real content in the sections. They've got what looks like a little map inside, and it's labeled map, and it has map areas, and you see the map has a little number 13 on it. That's because that's clickable, and when you click it, I'm assuming a little post-it note will be added showing what happens when you click on the map. You know, do you get information about what you just clicked? So all these little post-it notes are showing interactions, behaviors. So you can see the blue represents, I think, a thumbprint where they click and then their user is added to the map, and then they're taken inside the map to interact with that content inside. So this is a post-it note style paper prototype where the behavior is being shown in post-it notes. You don't want to have just a static paper prototype. You want to be able to show what the buttons do. You want to be able to show any animations that happen, any sort of shifts from front page to second page or what have you. So here's just another example. Here's the other side of that. You can see they click one of the buttons and content is brought in. So they've made this additional piece that fits in that shows what happens when you click that pink whale button. Up pops this multimedia page of whale information. So they've really done a good job of showing all the content, what it looks like. Notice that the whale is pretty much what they have for content. They're showing what a multimedia page would look like by making one. They're not going to make every multimedia page that would really be there, because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of items in the museum. They're just showing an example of one. What would it look like if it existed? So this week you're going to create 3 alternative paper prototypes. You should scan, photograph, or videotape them for evaluation. So your fellow classmates are going to evaluate your designs. They need to be able to see them pretty well, so just be considerate, be aware of another person's ability to understand what you've made. If you photograph it, make sure the photograph is really high quality. If you videotape it, make sure that you have that paper prototype front and center so it's very easy to see. So just be considerate when you figure out how you're going to capture your paper prototype to share it with the class.